But there's this massive effort to rebrand Kamala Harris because she's so unlikable, of course. And it's not just Democrats looking to do it, it's also big tech. Big tech is also now jumping in and trying to push Kamala as the next president of the United States by fixing Google alerts and Google searches. Ultimately, what's going on right now, if you were to look Donald Trump's name up right now on Google, you get a bunch of Kamala Harris stories. It's absurd, of course, doesn't really make any sense when you think about it. But again, folks, it's starting to feel like 2020 over again, where the intel community is stepping in, and so obviously is big tech. But again, it's everyone trying to make Kamala look like she is somehow presidential, even though she's extremely unlikable. And Kamala's also getting some help from white dudes. Yesterday, I had the unfortunate pleasure of diving into the White Dudes for Harris meeting. Now, it was supposed to be a Zoom meeting, and I was hoping that I'd be able to jump in and ask some questions, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to do so. But thousands of white dudes jumped in on this call, and let's just say it gave off massive, massive beta vibes. Take a listen.
I'm white, I'm a dude, and I'm for Harris.
Over the last few years, I've been thinking a lot about men.
I'm not sure if you guys can recall that feeling you had on the night of Tuesday, November 8th, 2016. I stood over my kid's bed and I wept.
White nationalists in MAGA, they want to speak for you specifically as white men.
In the marginalized communities that educate me every single day, that this is a constant education for all of us.
Kamala is carrying on her shoulders 248 years of pain, of agony, of hope, of frustration. And no matter how high she jumps, no matter how many degrees she has, no matter how good her grades are, she's never good enough because they're always moving the line.
What a variety of whiteness we have here. It's like a rainbow of beige.
But man, I am scared to death of what the future could look like if we go back to another Trump administration, one that truly left working construction white men behind.
You've seen it with congressional leaders who have called Vice President Harris a DEI candidate.
Of course, men are also more free in a country where we have a president who stands up for things like access to abortion care.
Let's be clear about who Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are. Donald Trump is a 34-time convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, and a congenital liar. He's a fraud. And J.D. Vance is his mini-me. I even created my own cognitive test that describes the two of them. Sofa, dolphin, shark, cats, convict.
Real men respect women, their decisions, their careers. And it's pretty clear that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance don't.
A woman president, man. How exciting.
If there is a God, she's a terrible writer.
One day, we all will be asked what we did to stop this MAGA movement. What will your answer be?
Well, I spent 3 hours last night listening to that entire meeting, so you didn't have to. So just appreciate the fact that you only got a 2-minute shortcut of what actually unraveled. It was embarrassing, folks. It was disgusting. It was brainwashing. That's the best way to describe it. It felt like a re-education camp if Democrats got their way and forced us all to attend. But it's not just white men who are supposedly standing with Kamala Harris. It's also white women who feel like now is the best time to step up to the plate and, well, I guess have to lead Kamala Harris, a woman of color, to the White House. Take a listen.
Ariel Fodor, affectionately known as Mrs. Frazzle, to her combined audience of over 1.5 million followers, is here to help gentle parent us through this election.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am so honored to speak today. I am like shaking to just be among such incredible company. We are here because, as if you were here earlier, you've heard BIPOC women have tapped us in as white women to step up, listen, and get involved this election season. As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes.
Ugh. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But, you know, women need someone with some cojones to lead the way. And so thankfully they had this dude up there for the white women for Harris helping do just that. You guys, it's an absolute mess. It really, really is. This spin to push Kamala as a legitimate candidate is horrible. Now, as many of you guys know, Kamala Harris, literally her only experience in life is being an absolute failure. And we have a ton of proof of just that. Now, she's trying to rewrite history, of course, and so is her campaign by pretending like she was never the border czar. But we all know she was. Even the mainstream media called her the border czar. But now they want you to think that it's just the right-wingers who are calling her the border czar because, well, the border is an absolute mess right now. And so we have to go back and take a look back and listen to the corporate media telling you, the American people, who was really in charge of the border mess. Take a listen.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
So, just for the record, guys, Kamala Harris was put in charge of the border, but because, well, Democrats intentionally made it a mess, because they wanted millions of unknown aliens to enter our country, they're now backpedaling because they know even Democrats are ticked off with what's going on right now at our southern border. It's an absolute mess. And when they sit here and they lie to you and they gaslight you into thinking that Kamala Harris wasn't in charge of the border crisis, I've got plenty of evidence that that is completely false. Thousands of Americans were victimized by everything that's going on right now with our open border policy. Millions are now going to have to pay the ultimate price in regards to higher taxes. Maybe you've got kids in school who are going to lose out on resources because people who are not paying their fair share into property taxes are now going to be putting their children in your schools. I mean, there's so many angles to touch upon this, but the crime is really the infuriating part in all of this. Illegal aliens who break into our country are committing a crime as soon as they illegally cross into the U.S. Now, people like Kamala Harris will pretend like that's not the case. But our country specifically has ports of entries that they are supposed to enter into if they are looking to so-called claim asylum. But none of them really have asylum claims. They're just looking for a free-for-all. And Democrats will tell you, no, that's not the case. But it is the case. Democrats are just looking ahead, and they see this as their future voter base. Kamala Harris is ready for her future voters to come pouring into the United States. She has even promised amnesty, as absurd as it is. Take a listen.
I intend to fight for a state that has the largest number of immigrants, documented and undocumented, of any state in this country, and do everything we can to bring them justice and dignity and fairness under the law and pass comprehensive immigration reform. Bring them out from under the shadows.
Bring them out from under the shadows. Those are her new voters she's talking about. They broke the law. They're coming in now. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, too, that woman that you just saw on your screen, apparently she's a former prosecutor. So we shouldn't have to lecture about this, but we have to because she wants to pretend like laws are up for your interpretation, that you don't have to enforce all the laws. That's the new rules from the Biden regime. The only ones who have to comply with laws are their political opposition, and not those who are now coming into our country who are going to be their future voter base. Democrats know what's going on here. They're looking ahead because they know they've lost the trust of the American people. So many Americans are outraged as to what's going on in this country right now, and so they're flipping. They are now looking for alternatives when it comes to representation. And so Democrats, well, they see right through it. And they're calling their new voter base in from third world countries. They've been signaling this for quite some time now, and it's disturbing, it's heartbreaking, because we're watching our own country completely crumble. And that's exactly what's going on here. Democrats from all over the country are actually waking up. Their voters is what I'm specifically talking about right now. Their voters are infuriated. And it's thanks to Texas Governor Greg Abbott, I have to say. Greg Abbott has been the one flooding these blue cities with these illegal migrants. And so these liberal voters can no longer pretend like it's racist to want to protect your home, protect your country. It's not racist. Democrats are starting to wake up. Their voters are starting to wake up. And Kamala Harris is in a lot of trouble. And that's why you see the mainstream media and big tech trying to rewrite history as if Kamala was never an issue, as if Kamala was a backer of the actual laws that are currently on our books. Kamala Harris is a Marxist. There is no other way to look at this. This woman will destroy this country. So many are focused on the superficial factors of Kamala Harris, like Kamala Harris being a woman who has maybe slept her way to the top. But let me tell you something, folks. This woman is a threat. Joe Biden ran a political campaign from the basement and somehow was able to maneuver his way into the White House. So let's focus on the cold, hard facts. Kamala Harris is a threat to our democracy. She is importing the third world because your vote no longer matters to her. She wants to water down the voices of the American people. And so she's bringing in millions and millions and millions of third world country residents. And she's going to replace you. That's not a conspiracy. That is the reality. That's what's going on right now in our country. And everyone is beginning to wake up. The corporate media can no longer have its control on you, the American people. They see right through it. And don't take my word for it. Just take a look at their ratings.